New World. The highly anticipated MMO launched to almost 1 million concurrent players in late 2021, before a combination of game-breaking bugs, poor design choices, and mismanagement saw that drop to 100,000. It was the textbook example of what a company that didn't make games was capable of when they had more money than sense, and I'm willing to bet for many of you that was the last time you thought about it. It certainly was for me, at least until a viewer in my Twitch chat recommended I take a look at it, and so I've done exactly that. Here, on the eve of the game getting a rework, I'm dropping by on my continuing tour of the MMO landscape to see what, after everything that's happened, is going on in New World. Our journey begins not with character creation, but an intro cutscene showing how our fateful journey to the New World began. Somehow, in all of the coverage I've seen of the game, I'd never noticed that it takes place in the real world. With the background information out of the way, it's time to make our character. The whole process seems pretty flexible, but as always, I never put much thought into it. The name Bob is taken, so let's try Bobbert instead. Nope, no good. Bobbert 2? Not that either. Surely Bobbert 3 isn't taken? It's not, and with our character made, it's time for the obligatory shipwreck. I'm pretty sure a shipwreck opening is required by law for MMOs. We wash up on the beach and quickly get introduced to combat. The game has an action combat system vaguely along the lines of the Souls games. Now I love the Souls series, so I'm all for this decision. A bit down the beach we find the magic box from the intro cutscene. I haven't eaten anything for a while, so we scarf the box down and make a disembodied voice very angry. After killing enough enemies, we unlock a mastery point. Each weapon has a short mastery tree that helps define what the weapon can do. It leans a little bit too much into the 5% block chance type of upgrade for my personal taste, but the abilities you can unlock through the tree are all fairly useful. As we crest the hill, we're treated to quite the sight as the title pops up. One of the things the game was always praised for was the visuals, and while they aren't particularly remarkable now, there's some great art direction on display. Down the hill, we run into our old captain. He's a final check to see how well we've learned what the tutorials tried to teach us. Of course, he's also a forced loss boss battle, and we die. It's okay though, because we get better. Our escapades have gotten us to level 2, which means that we have some attribute points to spend. I really like that the game tells you what each weapon scales with when you level up, which helps you figure out what to focus on. However, something I don't like is that the coolest sounding weapon, the flail and shield, is something you can only use if you have the Rise of the Angry Earth DLC, which I do not. There's no indication here that's the case though, so I start building in that direction. As I'm coming out of the menu, another player decides to say hello. I'm glad this isn't the full loot open world PvP game it was originally envisioned as, or I would probably be dead here. At the nearby watchtower we find Layson Reese. He's a scout for the nearby town of Corinth, and so far I have to say the voice acting is decent. It's not great, but I've heard much worse in my travels. In another parallel to the Souls games, the island we're on has a bit of a quirk in that nothing dies permanently. The people and animals respawn a few minutes after they're killed, and just like the Souls games, anyone who goes crazy and gives up goes hollow, lost, and respawns as soulless, mostly mindless beings. I'm sure there's an explanation for all this, but in the meantime the town needs our help. Layson teaches us about crafting our own tools and a bit of hunting. If you've played any survival game in the last 15 years or so, you'll pick it up quickly. Once we've gotten some proper non-box food in us, it's time to poke around the wreckage of our old ship and see if there's anything interesting we can find. The area is bristling with undead, so we knock a few of them down for fun. After a brief workout, we head off to find any survivors that may be stuck on the beach. That brings us in contact with Grace O'Malley. She's an Irish pirate lady and the resident loot goblin who spends most of her time combing the beach for treasure. As a loot goblin myself, I understand the call, so we agree to help her out. Something this extended tutorial has done well is give us a steady supply of new weapons to try out. For the moment, none of them have been particularly exciting, so I've been sticking mostly with the sword and shield. Occasionally, the respawn timers on enemies are ridiculously short. It makes me wonder if the game doesn't have them counting down constantly while the enemy is still alive. No time to ponder the big questions, however, because we run across the ship that Grace wants us to scour. It's crawling with boar for some reason, but we're just here for the treasure. Overall, the platforming feels smooth, which is not something I was expecting when I started this trip. Of course, shipwrecks are like potato chips, you can never have just one. The second ship has a definite zombie problem, though it's nothing we can't handle. It's starting to feel like the enemies in this game are either just zombies or animals. I wonder if this trend is going to continue through the whole trip. After we get everything for Grace, it's time to invade Layson's personal space. He tells us he's found the source of the storm that sank our ship. Honestly, I expected something like that to be solved closer to the end of the game, but we'll look into what he's found. At this point, we've gotten our first blunderbuss, which is fun, but would be much better if I remembered that I have 2 weapon slots instead of 1. In the back of the cave, we find a zombie that appears to be the one summoning the storm. This is one problem I know we can fix. And it looks like that did solve the problem, as after we kill the zombie, Layson tells us the storm is receding. I wonder what will happen when the thing responds, but I'm not about to burst his bubble. He writes up a report for us to deliver to the mayor of Corinth, and we head out. Along the way, a statue grabs our attention. Talking to it gives us a vision that reveals the island is the Garden of Eden, apparently. I really can't help but wonder why I'm being given this information right now. A discovery like this feels like something we should discover through the journey, not something that just gets dropped at our feet at the end of the tutorial. Personally, I just don't see the point. But setting that all aside, we follow the road to the city of Corinth and find civilization at last. Corinth is where the game's original vision and the story they added later immediately start clashing. The game was initially envisioned as an open-world, full-loot PvP game with no story, though shortly before release they walked back the full-loot PvP part and later added in a story. The story insists the town is barely hanging on in the face of a famine that threatens to wipe it off the map, and between the thriving market board and the player housing complete with unnecessary spotlights, you can definitely tell. Throughout everything that's about to happen, just try to imagine Corinth as the historic reality of Jamestown rather than the slice of colonial fantasy paradise it actually is. The early quests here are designed to get us familiar with how towns work. The standout for me is the market board. I've seen a lot of different market boards in my travels, and this is up there with RuneScape's Grand Exchange for my favorite. Anything that lets me sell items to partially fill someone's order is a plus in my book. Eventually, we make our way over to the mayor of the town. He wants us to find a way to solve the famine, which he blames on a local sorceress no one has seen in years. Apparently, the town pays her regular tribute for some reason, and something must have happened to this payment. To address the problem in the short term, though, he sends us to clear out the local farms that have developed a real zombie problem. We get distracted on the way by a local archaeology site that's also developed a zombie problem. I'm still trying to find a weapon that I like, and while hammers and greatswords are usually my go-tos in any RPG, they really aren't clicking for me here. Eventually I decide to try the hatchet, which I like well enough, but something catches my eye. I'm no expert, but I'm pretty sure this is not how you hold a hatchet. Amazon spent a reported $200 million on this game. Why does it look like this? We reach the farm that's about as overrun with undead as the rest of the island, so it's up to us to salvage what food we can. There are several other players here alongside me keeping the enemies busy, which makes the whole process very easy. Once the food is recovered, it's time to check for survivors. We find a woman named Nessa Harrower hiding out behind one of the buildings. She's a druid acolyte who's out of her depth, but eager to get to the bottom of the mystery. No one seems to have any idea what's actually causing the curse, but we do know that no one has seen the mercenaries that were supposed to deliver it. Sounds like we'll need to check in with them next. On the way there, we meet Roya, who's a huge fan of the mercenary company that disappeared. She's training to join them and would love for us to find a copy of their creed that she can study. For some reason, we opt to not tell her that they've disappeared and just say, sure thing. Near their camp, we find a lone survivor from the company. It seems like they were all turned into Lost, though it's becoming quickly apparent that how that works is nebulous at best. Leovic Silva tells us that these are people who've died time and again fighting against impossible odds and come back fine, but for some reason this time is different. Regardless, we need to search their camp to see if we can figure out what happened with the tribute. We find the unit's commander, who's a zombie with a shield. It's actually a tougher fight than usual, but nothing we can't handle at this point. The hatchet feels really strong, but it's not a very fun weapon, so I'm still looking out for something to replace it. A bit further in, we even managed to find a copy of the Creed. Roya's happy to get it so she can join the company now. Returning to Leovix, we find out that the entire company's been turned into Lost, which really should be given some kind of explanation. No time for that, however, since it turns out they never actually got the tribute to deliver. That appears to have been handled by the town guard this time around, and I'm now counting to the inevitable "the mayor did it" reveal like this is an episode of Scooby-Doo with an unusually high body count. We pick a fight with the zombie commander, who goes down very easily, and get confirmation that the sorceress in fact did not get her tribute. Which I thought we knew already, so what was the point? We report back to Leovix, who assumes the mayor's behind it, which Yeah, obviously, who else could it be? And he wants us to confront him about it. Talking to the mayor, he insists he sent the tribute and suggests that the town shouldn't be paying the sorceress for the nothing she does for them. We speak to the guard captain whose name came up earlier, and he tells us the tribute was taken by the pirates, who have now become lost. I swear every time there's a chance for us to fight something other than zombies or animals, we just end up fighting zombies again. Leovix doesn't think the sorceress is behind the famine, but he does figure that finding the tribute and delivering it to its intended recipient couldn't hurt. Near the pirates' camp, we run across Grace O'Malley again. She tells us that the pirates do, in fact, have the town's tribute, so we've come to the right place. Between me and the camp is an alligator. It's 2 levels higher than me, but that hasn't mattered so far. I may have made a mistake. After fighting my way into the pirate camp, I find a letter implicating the mayor in the theft of the tribute. Who could have seen this coming? On the way out, Grace tells us that actually we should head back inside and recover something called a verdant gemstone. I have no idea what this is, but I do like treasure. At this point, I've tried just about every weapon in the game and finally decide to commit to the rapier and bow. Both of these are dexterity weapons, so it's a good thing that you can respec at any time up to level 60 for free. Turns out that the pirate captain is guarding the gemstone, and I can't take him in a stand-up fight. His damage and defense are too high for me to deal with when he's used his buff ability. That just means I need to be a little clever and take a page out of my RuneScape playbook. On the bottom floor of the building he's in is a window that he'll try to attack me through, even though he can't actually reach me. That gives me an opening to shoot him a few times before he runs away. I have to be careful though, because he can also shoot me through that window. It takes a while, but I'm able to whittle him down and recover the gemstone. We return to Nessa, who's now convinced that the famine was caused by the gemstones being removed from their shrine rather than the sorceress, so we need to return it to its rightful home. The shrine is crawling with skeletons, but that's nothing we can't handle, and before long we have the gem right back where it belongs. Heading back to Corinth, we find out that the mayor has gotten the whole town on his side. That's the opposite of the impression I'd gotten, but sure. While that sorts itself out, we decide to focus on recovering the other gemstones. The map to where the rest of the gemstones are is in a nearby ruin, and after grabbing that, I decide to check out a nearby cave. I appear to have come to the wrong neighborhood. It turns out that the next gemstone is in the town hall, and when we confront the mayor about it, he tells us the third one's in the hands of a different pirate captain, who I'm just going to assume is also a zombie. I decide to take a break from the endless parade of zombie pirates and non-existent intrigue to take care of some side stuff. Along the way, I came to realize that I hate the mining in this game. For some reason, it sounds like you're shooting the rock with a gun, and I swear I've seen people dancing just like this at concerts. When the game first launched, one of the only things that was universally praised was the sound design, so I'm going to choose to believe that Amazon somehow made the baffling decision to make the sound design worse since then. It's the only explanation I can think of for why so many reviews would praise some of the worst sound design I've ever experienced in a game. To take my mind off the awful mining sounds, I decide to hunt some mountain lions and a bear that's become a threat to Corinth's hunters. The hunter who tipped me off about the bear recommended bringing some friends along to help, but it's barely a threat at all. With my break over, we head to the Spire of Kochab to return the next gemstone. It takes a bit of platforming to get to the top, and on the way down we run into Medea herself. She tells us that she didn't release the curse and sends us on our merry way. Catching up with Nessa, it turns out the pirates were zombies all along. We'll need to deal with the pirate captain and her pet alligator to get the gemstone back. The pirates have a whole fort set up on the coastline, so we need to do something about that. And by something, I mean blow up some powder kegs and ruin their cannons. The fort is crawling with enemies, and my current setup isn't great about handling that. Fortunately for me, the enemies are weak enough to not be an issue. With everything destroyed, it's time to take out the first mate. And once that's done, the captain is just a quick jaunt down the shore. Neither the captain nor the alligator are particularly challenging, and I'm so excited after my victory that I jump straight through solid rock. After untangling myself from that mess, it's time to return the gemstone to its proper place. We return to Nessa, who's confused that restoring the gemstones didn't do more for the environment. There's no time to waste, though, as the tribute is up and running again. Or should I say, running into trouble. The tribute has once again been attacked because this town has exactly one problem. We head to the place where the caravan got attacked and find a note talking about how the town, which, may I remind you, is supposed to be experiencing a severe famine at the moment, sent twice the normal tribute. Heading down the road, we find out that Medea has wiped out the druid grove that Nessa's from and actually did cause the famine that she swore she didn't do. The mayor may have done some pretty despicable things, but he was 100% right right about Medea. This town shouldn't be paying tribute to someone who does nothing for them but to try to wipe them all out the minute she doesn't get her way. However, we're in a position to correct that mistake. Medea's got some powerful spells and a couple henchmen helping her out, but we're able to take her down, after a couple tries at least, since it takes 3 fights for the game to catch up with us. Of course, she's not actually dead and she was just testing us. She's even decided to help us get the voice out of our head, or would if she could be bothered. I guess I'm supposed to find the fact that she's an unapologetic mass murderer and extortionist quirky? No justice for Corinth or the druids that she turned into lost. Just start counting down the days until some pirates steal the tribute again and she decides to wipe the town out for good. And this is where my time in New World came to an end. Combat was fun once I found a weapon that I enjoyed, but the whole experience was marred by weak world building and weaker writing. This was a game that was so anticipated that almost 1 million people were playing daily after release, but that number has fallen to only a couple thousand now. At the time of writing, the Aeternum relaunch is on the horizon. Reviews from the early beta are good, so there's a chance that the people who like this game will have something to look forward to. Only time can tell. For me, this game just wasn't much to write home about. There wasn't enough of the things that I come to MMOs for to really get into. But something strange did happen while I was playing. I started to feel nostalgic for Embers Adrift, the first stop on my MMO tour. It's had a few updates since the last time I checked in, and maybe it's time to drop in again and see how things are going. But that'll be a story for another time. For now, thank you for watching. I hope you had as much fun with this one as I did. I'll catch you in the next one.